Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today George Copeland. He is with a company called Laborem Edge. He does digital marketing, and he has a very fascinating concept in today's world, I think, because he talks about how to win in business by leading with integrity, and certainly building legacy is all about that. Before we get into how you came about that, George, let's talk a little bit about your business, what brought you to your business, and then let's talk a little bit about what makes your business thrive.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Lois, for having me. This is an exciting opportunity to talk about integrity and how it's associated with digital marketing specifically. And as you mentioned today, it's an interesting term that I think is we don't see enough of it in today's world. And when it comes to integrity, I could talk about it in so many different ways. And I think I'd like to start with how I got started, like you just said. So I was just thinking that off the cuff, the reason I got into what I'm doing now is because I was hired about 7.5 years ago by a business partner at the time to help him start a restaurant and nightlife venue. And so I had a background in music management and nightlife promotions. And so after doing that, I went to the radio station. And then from there, I was hired by this guy to help him open up a venue. And part of my job was to do all the marketing and promotion. And they needed a website. So I went and I hired someone that I thought I could trust to build the site. And we're at opening night or the opening day of the venue, and we didn't have a website. And I'm like so frustrated. And not only that, but we'd already paid him all the money to build this thing. So I'm embarrassed. I have to go to my mentor business partner and explain to him that we don't have a website and I'm not going to get any more money approved for that. So I have to go figure out a solution. And I just happened to teach myself how to build websites pretty quickly. And I built one for the nightlife venue and one for the restaurant. And I found a lot of joy in doing it. And I got a lot of good feedback from it. So from there, once I was done with that project, I ended up going back into my list of contacts from years past. Actually, the lady who cut my hair, she had an idea for another business. So I started doing a website for her. And so integrity, to me, we never ended up getting anything back from that business, and that is the opposite of integrity, right? So when you do something in life, you give your word, you want to always do the right thing. And that's in its simplest form. And I think that in my industry, there's a lot of, I think it's the fake it till you make it concept, unfortunately, where ever since COVID began, there's been a lot of people, anyone with a laptop, I feel, is a digital marketer. It's an easy market to get into because it requires very little investment, right? You just need a laptop and an internet connection, really. And so there's a lot of people that are promising the world to businesses, and it's unfortunately tainting our industry. When I got into business, another reason I started or what motivated me to do digital marketing was I had other friends and mentors get taken advantage of by Yellow Pages, which they were the original Google of their time. So very valuable, very value-driven business. But when digital marketing came around, as the buzzword of the time. They say, well, we need to get into this, right? Google is taking over our market share. So we need to, before we lose all of our clients, we need to get into that market. And unfortunately, they are a sales-driven entity, right? They had a great relationship with their clients. And so therefore they had the trust, and they convinced them to sign these annual contracts. And it was a $12,000 contract. And when they didn't end up getting the results, the contract was to get them more business, just like Yellow Pages was. But when they didn't get it, they would come back with respond with, we got you all these clicks. So it's not our fault, it's your fault. And it's not their fault. At the end of the day, their expectation as a client was to get more traffic and more leads. And so I felt it was wrong that Yellow Pages hid behind the philosophy of clicks. And so it's our responsibility as marketers today, when we have tools at our disposal, to get the data to show exactly how many leads or how much traffic you're getting to your website, what those sources are, how much you're spending on each source. Google Ads is a big tool that we use, or resource that we use. And the reason I love it is because of the transparency it provides. So it allows us to be able to show a business exactly where every dollar they spend is going and what's working and what's not working. We take the ad, we send them to the landing page. We actually listen to the phone calls so that we know everything we're doing is very transparent, and we understand if it's working or not working. So therefore, there's no misinterpretation or feelings. Our clients never feel like they're being taken advantage of, because they know exactly what's going on at all times. So I went on a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to just paint the picture of what transparency looks like through integrity.
So, George, I think right now there's not a person in this space that uses marketing that hasn't been burned by a digital marketer, right? I don't think so. And so when we first started talking, I said, I think we better define the word integrity, because I'm not sure it means what I think we each hold a different definition, perhaps. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that and how you arrived at what is integrity, because I think some of what you described is what we would expect. That's normal expectation. So to me, integrity is that plus. So talk a little bit about that.
Understood. Okay. I love that you just said that, because expectations are huge in life. It's all about setting expectations. So I don't agree with the philosophy of people guaranteeing leads or business, at least a specific number, in a specific time frame. There is no guarantees when it comes to marketing. You can set expectations that your goal is to get to this point or to hit this goal for the business. However, I want to also tie in the concept that you don't know what you don't know, right? So what I'm about to say, you probably aren't aware is even possible, but I've spent the past 3 years developing a software that takes data from Google. So I can actually look back 4 years of search history on Google, and I can see exactly what people search for. It's anonymous, so no, I don't get to see exactly what Lois is searching for example, but I get to see the aggregated data so that I can see on a specific topic, like landscaping, for example, exactly what type of ways people are searching for that topic or niche, and how many times a month are they searching for it, right? As well as an average cost. And those metrics I can actually extract based on location. So I can take a business and say it's landscaping and say they provide a service in 3 different counties. Then I can go look at those 3 counties, and based on 4 years of historical data, I can see a trend and I can see an average demand, right, of that business. And then I can actually calculate, based on our agency's historical performance for that industry, we can predict in the future what the 12-month outlook looks like. So we can say on average, next month we're going to get you 30 to 40 leads at an average cost of $70, right? And I can even break it down further into what type of leads. Are they hardscaping leads? Are they repair? Are they install? So we use natural language processing, which is a fancy word, but we break it down into topics using semantics. So like install and repair are two examples. And what that allows us to do is then give that expectation to that client based on a concrete, evidence, the data that Google provides. And what my main purpose or my main goal with this software is to provide transparency to the world so that businesses can begin to defend themselves through the awareness of what's actually possible for that business. Because right now, I don't think that it's intentional that a lot of agencies or people that have started agencies are intentionally trying to deceive people. What took me so long to do is very, very tough. It took a lot of time. It's my life's work, I would say at this point, as far as the software goes. And so because of the complexity of digital marketing, people decide they don't have the years to invest like I did into figuring out what the expectation of a working together looks like. So they just throw out a number based on maybe, hopefully, prior experience. But unfortunately, there's a lot of coaches out there that say, just tell them this and then figure it out afterwards. And I don't agree with that. When I started out doing paid advertising, specifically with Google, it gave me a really bad feeling in my gut when they would ask me, how much do I need to be spending on Google and what am I going to expect to get from that? I couldn't tell you. There is a keyword planner that Google provides, but it's very biased towards Google in regards to Google's bottom line is the clicks, because that's how they get paid. So they don't go out of their way to avoid in their prediction the keywords that you should be avoiding, if that makes sense. So if I told Google I want to look up landscaping traffic, it's going to give me a list of thousands of different terms, and it's going to say on average we're going to give you X amount of traffic or leads from that. But in that list, there's probably 40 to 50% of the terms that should be avoided. So it's taking into account false expectations. And so tying it into integrity, I think that in a way it is Google's responsibility if they have the ability to provide that type of awareness to businesses. I could go down a long path talking about their machine learning and how they're, I think, trying to get closer to that end result for the people that sign up. But I want to keep this conversation focused on the integrity piece, which it's I think an obligation or responsibility. There's a quality of life metric that is directly impacted by businesses that literally take the trust of a business. So an agency taking the trust of a business, and most likely it's a small business, right? And these small businesses, there's not just the cost of the agency, but the operational cost. And a lot of agencies are getting people to sign up for a 3-month agreement typically. And that's a lot of it, depending on the business, that is a lot of operating capital, including the wasted spend that you're probably not going to get back. Even if there's a money back guarantee, they're probably going to convince you that it's your fault, not theirs. And it's really not good for our economy. I think everyone agrees that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. And if we've got thousands and thousands of, one-man show agencies that are basically selling everyone the world, golden promise, and then not delivering, like you said, it puts a bad sentiment into, it makes my life a lot more difficult when I do try and sell businesses, because they just think that we're like everybody else. And that doesn't hurt me as much as the fact that they're getting hurt as a business, because not only then are they not going to most likely work with me, but now they're hurting themselves even further, because if they would work with us, they would get the results that they need. And it's already a leap of faith without being burned in the first place, because we're not a cheap service, because it's a very difficult thing to do what we do. And so it's a whole nutshell that we have to kind of unwrap or unravel that I think, again, starts with transparency and knowledge. I think if businesses and agencies both understood the real opportunity within their industry that they're trying to market, and easily access it through a software like we're developing, then I think that would really help the dialogue and the foundation that the conversations are started on between agency and business.
So do you license that software? So if other agencies are listening and they are curious, is it possible for them to license the software from you?
My goal was, so it's been a work in progress. We're working with a development firm. Myself, I can't take credit for being a full-fledged developer. So I'm more the product manager, designer of the project. And my hope is within 6 months, we can have a public facing software that we can give people access to. For now, I've developed an MVP version of it in-house that we have been using for the past year or so, and year and a half. There's so many iterations to it. Technically, the first version was about 3 years ago in an Excel document. But to answer your question, it's not available yet. It breaks my heart that's not available, especially because through COVID, there was actually a boom in our industry because everyone needed to go to digital marketing. And so I hope 6 months from now, I'll keep you in the loop.
Okay, we'll be eager to hear what happens. And for those of you who are listening, we'll have information in the show notes for you as well, so you can continue to be in contact should you want information down the road. So when you have this information, integrity, there's a fear I think people have about digital marketers. Is it a burn of money? Does it really produce a result? Would I do better with just a drip campaign? Or am I better with the old-fashioned process of networking and just going and getting my customers? So what's your experience, and what would you say to that?
That's a great question. So it depends on the stage of where you're at with your business and the type of business, to answer your question. So I'll start with the drip marketing, right, which is based on the stage of your business. If you don't have a list yet, if you don't have a database of subscribers or customers, then drip marketing, database reactivation is an industry term we might use for those types of campaigns, aren't going to serve you very well, because you don't have any buy-in, you don't have trust, you don't have a brand built up that people will buy into your drip marketing campaigns for the most part. And then when it comes to word of mouth, we all know that is the true and tried form of marketing that's never going to go away. And I would not have integrity to say that is the form of marketing that will always beat any form if it's done properly. Speaking of integrity, if you have it, then it's going to help you with your word of mouth, because there is a hack that I don't agree with when it comes to using online social media for word of mouth. There's actually you should always trust but verify in life. So there are actual people that make deals with other businesses or people, and they will shout them out in groups and say, this person helped me. And that is a form of word of mouth that people trust. And then when they do that, it really does stimulate that trust and that engagement to hire that person. But what they don't understand is behind the scenes, there might be a deal worked out where the person who made that post is going to get a cut percentage of the revenue that was brought in through that post. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for telling people that, but it's a fact that does happen. I was actually only made aware of it recently, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. So true word of mouth can be faked, unfortunately, in the digital world. But I think that when it comes to what we do, it's not a good fit for everyone. But for example, home services, which we specialize in law firms. So a lot of service-based businesses, we excel at providing services for, because a lot of contractors have great word of mouth and curb appeal, curb marketing. So like if they're working on a roof, they can put a sign in the yard, and that's going to be a phenomenal way to generate business. But if a roofer or a landscaper is really hungry to grow their business, they can hire someone like us who's going to be able to really target people based on their intent. So when they go to Google and they type in landscaper near me, then clearly they didn't see the sign in the front yard. Clearly they weren't told, or they don't have friends they can ask about who the right landscaper would be or roofer to hire. So we want to catch those people in the moment and put an ad in front of them that says, hey, we're the right landscaper for you. And we want you to call this company that can do the work for you. And so those are opportunities that a business would miss out on if they didn't hire a business like us to handle that form of marketing. And it's going to, depending on where you do business, if it's a city with a lot of demand for that service, which again, we always start out like, I want to make the analogy for business owners. Starting a digital marketing campaign is a lot like starting a business. You should always do the upfront research to figure out, is there a demand? Are people going to value the product that you provide? And that is our first step. And that's what any agency should be doing. They should look and use Google's open source, resources and figure out, are there people looking for your service? Because if they're not, we can't help. There's no way you can't squeeze the juice from the fruit if there's no juice to be squeezed, right? So it's important that you do the research, educate yourself. I think business owners, they can use resources like SpyFu or SEMrush, or there's another, if you type in keyword research on Google, there's a lot of resources you can at least do on your own to figure out in your area, are there people looking for your services? And if there are, then digital marketing would be a good fit. There's also a whole suite of services we provide in addition to that, but that's where we like to start. And so then we have another platform that I think you might actually be using based on the invitation we got, which acts like a CRM, and it allows you to do drip marketing, like you said, through texting, email, voicemail drops, and a whole suite of other services. And we tie that in with our lead generation service, but we also offer it to the businesses that are at a stage where they're not ready for the really ramping up the amount of leads they need.
So, George, is there a point where a company is not ready? When do you, if you're a startup, when do you turn that corner to being ready for digital marketing? And if you're more of a medium-sized company, entrepreneurial company, at what point do you move and focus on digital marketing? Is there a point where you make that shift?
Sure. That's a really good question too. And it is how we start our conversations with potential clients. So we need to understand what is the capacity that a business can take on a monthly basis. And so if depending on your revenue and your profit margin, which we also want to understand before we work with a business, we need to understand those three metrics, and then hopefully the close rate as well. So if we got you 10 leads, how many of those leads would you most likely convert into paying customers or jobs? And if we can get that information, then it's much easier to answer that question. So, because we always want to make sure that they get more than they spend at the end of the day. And if they don't have a capacity to take on enough work that it would end up paying for the marketing spend in our services, then it wouldn't be the right time for us to work with them. Perhaps they can try and do it on their own, and they might, for example, I spoke with someone after my last podcast about a month ago, and I followed up with her a month later. And she said that she's tried doing Google Ads on her own, and she's gotten a little bit of traction. And that's great because she's avoiding our high agency fee, and she's not at a point in her business yet where she really needs to fine tune her traffic to the point where she's extracting every lead at the lowest price point, because it's important to us to get to be the best in the market so that our true cost per lead, taking into account the agency fees and the marketing spend, which is also a point of integrity. A lot of agencies will hide, they'll charge you a flat rate, and then they won't tell you how much ad spend is included. And so at the end of the day, that is the calculation that would be needed to figure out if a business, can first handle the business, and then will the profits result in a true ROI. After that, it's more psychological. Our biggest roadblock or hurdle to overcome when it comes to businesses deciding if they're ready to work with us is actually the fear to get started in the first place. So whether they've been burned in the past or they just have sticker shock, it's hard to get over to make that decision for small businesses to be spending. For us, it's anywhere between usually on average $5,000 and above to be working with us on a monthly basis. So it's a tough pill or a big pill to swallow. But if they can get over that mental roadblock and they can be able to front that type of capital for a month or two, the amount of return they're going to get greatly outweighs that investment. So besides the numbers making sense, they also have to understand how business works, the cost of operating capital to not use a service like ours.
Got it. And part of what you talk about with integrity is helping people sort that so they make the right decision at the right time. I'm guessing. Who are your best clients?
Thank you. They are definitely home service and law firms. We've worked with,
What is home service? What do you mean by home service?
Thank you. So we are mainly focused right now, we're doubling down on landscapers, which is a form of home service. But any home service is general contractor is a very broad form of home service. Someone who installs pools, pest control, roofers, siding, gutters, doors. We've worked in all these different industries. And the reason they work so well for us is because their profit margins per project or per job or their bottom line profit really is so high that we've, in the first month, been able to pay for our services for a whole year with some certain contractors. For landscapers, if they do hardscaping, it's a perfect fit for us. If they focus just on maintenance and lawn services, it's a little more challenging because it's more of a lifetime value that we have to calculate. That's also a metric I should have brought up because their retention is important to whether or not it would make sense. How long have they been in business and how long are they usually keeping customers for? Because if they're only keeping customers for 3 months and making $50 a yard per month, then $150 revenue, not including, cost of goods or services, is not going to make sense to work with us at the end of the day. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, George, our time is almost up. And so things that we have not talked about that you think people should think about, know about, or that you do really wonderfully that you would like people to hear about as well.
So something that I'm trying to get the message out about right now for businesses that they can do on their own and can really help them grow is Google My Business. It's a free service that Google offers to all businesses. And what you do is you can type in Google My Business into Google, and it'll allow you to create a free listing. If you type in a good way to know if you have a listing or not is to type in your business name into Google. And if it shows up on the right side of Google, then that means it exists. Whether or not you have actually claimed it and verified ownership is another step that is very important, because if you haven't done that yet, maybe you started a business and you hired someone and they did all this for you, but you weren't aware of it, right? Maybe you don't actually have direct access to that account. And what can happen is people can go there, they can review, which is very important that you respond to reviews, because 80+% of consumers are looking for those responses to reviews. So that's also why you shouldn't be too worried about negative responses, because people can tell the genuinity of your business and how you represent yourself based on your responses. Not everyone is happy. And so there's that point. But something also to be very careful or to be aware of is if you have a listing and you're not able to access it, people can actually go in. I could go into any business and make a recommendation to change the phone number or any other information about that business. And within 2 weeks, what happens is there's a notification sent out to whoever the admin of that profile is, whoever created the account. And if they don't respond, Google's going to then assume that recommendation is accurate, and it's going to update that profile. So if I was an unethical or a lack of integrity agency, and I had a landscaper in a certain area, what I can do, I have a resource. I can look up all the businesses in that area and figure out which one have not been verified or claimed. And I can actually change the phone numbers of all those listings to different numbers that would be sent to my client. Right. So that's something I wanted to just mention. It's very important. If you go to our website, which you can get to by typing in market.digital. So instead of .com, it's .digital. Market.digital. It'll take you to our website. You can click on the blog section, and we have 3 different blog posts talking about Google My Business, how to get it, how to protect yourself. You can also hire us. We're kind of like a registered agent. We can become an admin and make sure that your information never changes. And the final thing I'll note, if I can, is the reviews help you get listed. Not only the reviews, but making posts as often as you can on the profile will help you get listed organically. So things that you don't have to pay for. If you ever type in coaching near me or landscaping near me, you're going to see a map section with 3 different business results. And the way you get shown in those results, you can pay, but typically there's only 1 slot for paid and there's still 2 for organic. The way you get there is by getting a bunch of reviews, not all at once. I actually recommend you getting them frequently, because that's what Google looks and cares about is the health of your profile. And responding to all the reviews, and within the reviews, keywords matter. So people typing reviews in your responses, you actually want to include keywords that matter to your business. And when I say matter, it's not about what you think, it's about what actually people search for. So that's a big difference. There's vanity terms, which a business could go to an SEO agency and say, I want to be ranked for these terms, but there might be no demand for them. So you want to do your upfront research, figure out what terms actually matter, and then make sure to include them on your listing and the reviews and in your responses. And that will help you be found.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. That's
You're welcome.
information. Thank you.
You bet.
George, thank you so much for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast. And for those of you who are looking for more information, we will have information about George Copeland and his business in the show notes. So please feel free to connect with him. And if you would like some help, certainly feel free to contact us. And then remember to visit our website at www.buildtomorrow.com and our social media sites as well. Thanks very much, everybody, for being with us today.
Thank you, Lois.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.